Good afternoon et bon après-midi. Thank you for joining us for our 2022 Parity Forum. We would like to begin by acknowledging that Women in Governance's office is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Gangé Gahagat Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters of the Tiohtià:ke. We respect the continued connection with the past, present, and future, and our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other people within the Montreal community. My name is Catherine Diplock, Operations Manager for the Parity Certification, and I will be leading you through our 2021 cohort report findings. Nicole Piggott, Women in Governance's Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Synclusiv, will then be facilitating a panel discussion addressing the topics of intersectionality and the effects of the pandemic in the workplace, specific to women, with the help of our consulting partners, Accenture, Mercer, and WTW. We will then be opening our Q&A session. Please send your questions through in the Zoom Q&A. You will find the icon on the bottom of your Zoom window. Caroline Kedzie, Women in Governance's founder and Chief Equity Officer and co-founder of Synclusiv, will provide our closing remarks. Women in Governance is proud to announce the completion of its 5th Parity Certification cycle. The consolidated report has been sent to participating organizations and can be used as a tool to benchmark your results in all 3 dimensions: governance and vision, collective enablers, and equity, in relation to other participants. As we continue to grow, we would like to thank organizations who continue to renew year over year. The certification is an excellent assessment tool to measure equity programming regarding your ongoing DEI commitments. WIG continues to espouse that what gets measured gets done. Organizations that participate year over year have largely shown measured improvements in results. We thank you for being part of our community of like-minded organizations. We are excited to share that 73 organizations were registered for our 2021 Parity Certification cycle. We congratulate everyone for participating and are encouraged by our 10 platinum level organizations. We are looking forward to celebrating all of these organizations at our upcoming galas in Toronto and Montreal. We are pleased that with the increased number of participants, our cohort report is now able to provide benchmark data for organizations specific to industries where sample size is allowed. Here are the biggest areas of strengths identified through the 2021 Parity Certification cycle. We are pleased to highlight that organizations have been proactive in narrowing the gender divide on board of directors, and we are seeing an increase in gender parity. Executive sponsorship is very strong, and a top-down approach is one of the best ways to drive and sustain change and advance gender diversity programming initiatives. We recommend amplifying the impact of sponsorship by tying gender and DEI initiatives directly to executive compensation. Organizations have identified that inclusive practices must commence at the onset of engagement, and we have seen more robust and impactful policies and practices to reduce gender bias in recruitment. Measures such as unconscious bias training and minimum gender targets and intersectional prerequisites for all postings have helped this programming. Lastly, leadership development programs should continue to actively target women and assess intersectional representation. Organizations need to ensure that leadership programming is available for all levels of development to ensure a consistent and diverse talent pipeline to sustain improvements. The following are areas with the greatest need for improvement. As flex work arrangements continue to be the new normal, it continues to be critical to monitor by gender those participating in this programming. Based on this data, your organization can determine if equal advancement and leadership opportunities are afforded to those working remotely, as well as those returning to the office. It is prudent to note that more women take part in flex work, and we do not want them to be left out of any opportunities. Although we continue to make tremendous strides regarding gender parity on boards of directors, there continues to be a lack of diverse female representation and very limited targets regarding intersectional representation. Instead, only broader diversity is highlighted. In fact, most organizations are not even tracking this information. Organizations need to be intentional and focus on retaining top performing women. Are women engaged, valued, paid fairly, and given interesting work and career development opportunities? How are you monitoring staff satisfaction? Ensuring employee engagement will benefit your organization with reduced turnover and providing an ongoing pipeline of talent. Sponsorship programs are more than leadership development and mentoring. It is a person or group that supports, advises, and helps move the needle regarding women and their career advancement. Sponsors should ensure opportunities are presented to women to showcase their skills and be part of decision-making discussions where there has in the past been limited access. For those of you that have yet to enroll in our Parity Certification, please visit our website and complete our pre-qualification questionnaire to start the holistic process to evaluate and enact measurable change and monitor internal initiatives. Our assessment tool will help you identify DEI gaps specific to women with an intersectional lens, and our report will provide you with avenues to close identified gaps. For those that have certified, we invite you to continue to monitor and move the needle on inclusive programming and practices by recertifying year over year. Join our amazing community of like-minded organizations. Nicole Piggott, Chief Operating Officer at Women in Governance and co-founder of Synclusiv, will now introduce our consultant panel, Accenture, Mercer, and WTW.
Thanks so much, Catherine. What a great synopsis of all of the things that we've got going on in the Parity Certification and all of the great accomplishments of our participating organizations. Congratulations to you all for certifying in 2021. I wish you all the best for 2022. So I have the great privilege of having some fantastic women with me today to talk about some critical areas that many of you contended with when you were completing your certification. The first is someone that I've been working with for a number of years, Susannah Crabtree of Mercer, and she's a partner and a member of the Canadian leadership team at Mercer, Canada, and she leads a national consulting team who focuses on helping clients develop strong talent strategies by engaging, developing, and rewarding their people to build brighter futures. Susanna supports her local community as board chair of the YMCA and YWCA of the National Capital Region, and as a trustee of Wise Trust. Welcome, Susanna. We also have France Dufresne, is an accomplished market leader at Willis Towers Watson for employee experience and mergers and acquisitions, and a member of the Canadian leadership team. A strategic partner to clients and colleagues, a mentor of numerous next generation leaders. She assists organizations in accomplishing their business and people strategies. She has 30 years of experience in designing and implementing solutions associated to transformation, leadership effectiveness, culture evolution, employee experience, and leading to business performance. And I've actually had the privilege of working with both of these two ladies in my former life as a VP of HR. And last, but certainly not least, we have Nguyen of Accenture, and is the co-lead of Accenture's Canada's Women Employee Resource Group. And we talk a lot about the importance of employee resource groups in achieving gender equity in the workplace. And as a Vietnamese female immigrant, Lee has experienced and overcome the many challenges that relate to gender parity, diversity, and inclusion. In her role as the Women's ERG lead, she's committed to champion diversity, promote belonging, and ensure all women can bring their whole selves to their work at Accenture. Lee is the Canadian blockchain lead at Accenture with a passion to help organizations to understand the application of blockchain and how to unlock the benefits of this emerging technology to drive growth and innovation. In 2021, she was recognized as one of Canada's top women in fintech and blockchain by IT World Canada. And Lee, you're working in an area that we are striving to get more women in the workplace. So wonderful to have my three panelists with me today. Welcome, Susanna, France, and Lee. So let's start on a topic that many of our participant organizations struggled with in the 2021 Parity Certification. We're seeing women make great strides in gender parity, despite, we have had a little bit of a hit as a result of the pandemic. But one group of women that we are not seeing attention being focused on is women from diverse backgrounds, and particularly racialized women. So I think a conversation around intersectionality is critical if we're going to make change that's, that makes sure that no talent is left behind. So Susanna, let's start with you.
Wonderful.
So we've seen in the Parity Certification that organizations, even those that are doing well on gender parity as a whole, are struggling to integrate intersectionality in their priorities and approach. Can you share with us what intersectionality means? Maybe we think that we need to just start with people understanding what it means. And then I'd ask Susanna and, France and Lee, if you have anything to add. So Susanna, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'll just start by saying what a pleasure it is to be here, and how thrilled I am to be here with France and Lee as well. It's nice to be three different consulting firms all here on the same call. It doesn't happen very often, so I feel quite honored. When it comes to intersectionality, I think the first thing I would say is if we take a step back and think about each of us as unique individuals, there are traits and characteristics that we all have that are factors in our careers and our career advancement. And we continue to face challenges due to these factors in our lives. And in the workplace, the data, we all know that the data supports that certain factors create obstacles and make it really difficult for people to advance in their careers or stand as obstacles to success in their careers. And I think those factors quite clearly are gender identity, race, disability, even parental status, and certainly single parental status. These are all examples of these factors that really stand as obstacles to success. And it's in a really statistically significant way, right? So, I mean, success can be measured on lower pay, jobs of lower value, leadership. I thought you made a really good point right at the outset there about leadership, Nicole, lower promotion rates. I don't think they should stand in the way, of course, but we know that they do. In the literature, when we think about when I had looked at this in the past, in the literature, it is quite frequently represented by a Venn diagram. And the mathematician in me really likes the Venn diagram, right? So if you're thinking about, for instance, a woman who, and that's one of the balls in the Venn diagram, who is Black, and there's another ball in the Venn diagram, and then who is a single parent. And think of the intersectionality of those three things in the dark space that is the intersectionality of those three things, and thinking that all three of those factors lead to obstacles to success. I think that, to me, really clarifies what intersectionality means and how sometimes we focus on the balls, but we don't focus on where they overlap. So that's where I think I would start the discussion, and I would love to hear from France and Lee as well.
I can add to this.
Do you have anything to add? Yeah.
I can. I will try. I will try. You need to manage me, you know this, Nicole. So even today, when we ask a Black woman, an Asian woman, whatever, what comes in the way? Is it the fact that you're a woman, or is it the fact that you are culturally diverse, whatever? They would say, because I'm a woman. No matter. All those circles do intersect, absolutely. At the end of the day, the factor in their eyes that gets in the way for them to be able to continue to evolve an organization and be in the most important leadership roles really is about being a woman. So I would tell you, sadly, after 5 years working alongside with you, I still hear the same thing in the real life of organization. Whenever we have that conversation would be what I would like to say. I would also like maybe to give you a little bit of stories of amazing women with whom I work. Right? Coming from North Africa, coming from India, having lived in Dubai, and they have the courage to come and be a Canadian right? In the pandemic with their children. And they come and they're worried because your family is in India. It's not doing very well. You need to make your mark in the organization where you are. You were a star in Dubai, right? And now you need to shape your bearings and be recognized again while doing all this, while having your child never was able to go to school because you were in a pandemic. That's where I feel the circle that Susanna is talking about is in front of us. And to me, it's to acknowledge what they live, help them solve for this in the circumstance, and not forgetting that they are so precious to us. So those would be maybe some additions I would like to make to what Susanna has been saying.
An interesting perspective, France, to the notion of intersectionality, and that the gender factor can dominate as one of the issues. Lee, as someone who, like me, shares a visible intersectional lens, I'd love to get your perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And Susanna, I love the Venn diagram that you use. And if I can take another step to you, an analogy to kind of bring the point to life. So let's imagine you are in a grocery store. Let's imagine that you sitting in front of a cheap aisles, and you're looking at variety of brands. We see Doritos, we see Vicky's, we see Lay's, right? But let's take a deeper look in terms of each of the bag. Each bag has its own flavors. We see barbecue and honey. We see barbecue and smoked cheddar. We see sour cream and dill. We see sour cream and onion. I think it's so important for us to look at us in a deeper layer, to recognize the nuances, the experience, the perspective, the identity that we bring to the table as a whole person. So to me, intersectionality is kind of the flavor that we all bring, that we wear. And, I am Asian, I'm a female, but I'm an Asian female. Nicole is a Black female. I am an immigrant female Asian, and Nicole is, I guess, female Jamaican Black woman, right? So we bring a lot of different perspective and experience to the table, but also challenges that we face. And I think it's so important that organizations should recognize that nuances and that having that perspective so that they can design the policy and support, and also allow the space for us to come as a whole person.
That was so well said. Taking that Venn diagram and bringing that personal lived experience to the Venn diagram idea. Because the fact of the matter is, those of us who are of visible minorities, who are also share being a woman, the two factors actually impact very much our careers and our lived experiences. And it's shown by the data. The very fact that we don't see these women in leadership is an indication that it is impacting their careers. So Lee, over to you now. Can you share what the difference is between intersectionality and just diversity? Because I think that there's a lot of confusion around the two.
That's a great question, Nicole. And just going back to my analogy again, I guess, to me, the broader diversity is the broader of brand of chips, the broader of, female, male, broader, but intersectionality is so important, is the flavor of each bags bring, the chips company addressed to the consumer palates, right? But, we have honey and barbecue, we have smoked meat and honey, and we have sour cream and dill. Like, it is a variety of flavor. And as a person and myself, I show up to the world as an Asian female immigrant. Sometimes I'm an Asian female immigrant mom. I have many different challenges and perspective and experience that I need to face. And again, I think it's that's intersectionality, just to answer your question, Nicole. And I think we need to look in the layer of another layer of our identity, so that we can be inclusive as an organization, have a policy and support, and create the space for all of us to feel belonging, so that we can bring our whole self to work. I could come to work without worrying that I have responsibility at home, I have to being a mother at the same time, but somehow that work can allow me the flexibility and the intention of setting boundaries to really come to work with my whole self.
You know what? You raised such an interesting point, because intersectionality is layers, essentially. You're a woman, you're a mother, you're a Vietnamese woman, and all of those layers, when they intermesh, create a very complex dynamic. And in any one situation, you're dealing with some elements of those layers. Whereas when you look at diversity in its entirety, you tend to oversimplify in many cases those layers.
Yes.
Totally agree.
Go ahead, please.
Does anyone else have anything else to add?
As you were speaking, Lee, and I love the chips, by the way, you're making me hungry, but I absolutely love the way we're thinking about this. Before we started, Nicole, you made an interesting point about data and about organizations tracking data. And as you were speaking, Lee, I was thinking about intersectionality and thinking that a lot of the characteristics or the factors that I mentioned in the Venn diagram are things that are visible. These are things that we know about an individual. Sometimes when I'm thinking about diversity and bringing a diversity of thought and opinion to a table in order to hear about it, it's not always about characteristics that I can see. We make a lot of assumptions about an individual based on the fact that we know their gender, the fact that we know their race, the fact that we know if they're a parent, but there are so many other things going on behind the scenes. And I think that that's what a lot of employers are facing today, is the unique needs of so many of their staff and things that they can't even anticipate because they can't see them. And I think that diversity is actually a lot about what we can't see, and the fact that we need to be very open-minded to having these different points of view at the table to make sure that we're hearing things from different people's perspectives. So that's another distinction that I think I'm thinking about as we're speaking of this.
We sometimes just don't see diversity. We just don't see it, because if you're gay, it's that you don't have a label on your forefront. And to me, it's the addition of complexity that you two are talking about, is that it's complex because everybody's unique. So we try to label things to make sense of them, which is fine because we need that. But then we fall into a trap of labeling. And then we think that we understand because we label. So there's something there as a society that to be your true self, and no matter what diversity it means, and at the end, we don't care if you're pink with little dots on you, that has nothing, right? What we care about is, what do you bring? What is your unique point of view, perspective that you bring, for example, to a society or an organization? That's always sum up also the conversation we have on intersectionality.
You know what? That's such a great point, France, about the fact that, you want people to be able to, organizations to reap the rewards of all the richness of experience and perspective that diverse profiles and diverse people bring to the workplace. So, really good points. And one thing that I want everyone else to draw from this conversation is there are so many elements that make us unique and that encompass diversity. And we tend to focus on the visible, but there are many things that are not visible that are impacting the way we see the world. So France, it's a great segue to my last question for one of you as individuals is, what are the dangers of looking at broader diversity versus looking at gender?
It's interesting you say that, because I even thought that at one point that very parity I said, for women, I would say, well, we have so much to tackle with the rest of the diversity, right? So maybe it's not as important. Knowing that in Canada, that remains top of mind for organizations from what we know from data. But then I saw many things. I saw that we did not progress as much as we would have hoped. This is so sad. I happened to facilitate a group of CLOs, CHROs, CFOs in Montreal. So we go as women, we made it a community, and we have fun. We talk about things that nobody else than female leaders could talk about. And we realized with data that was not the case. So on one point, so then I realized, I said, oh my goodness, we need even more to attend to this in the intersectionality with it, because parity and diversity and women in leadership will continue to evolve from a need and society standpoint. It will not stay still. We need to evolve. And what I see is that we absolutely need it. We absolutely need to celebrate and talk about it and find it normal. The day that we'll find it normal, maybe we'll be done for this, but even after 5 years, I would tell you it's very sad. At the same time, may I just mention a couple of names that make me happy. Anna Van Hacker leads Merck for China. Isabelle Hudon leads BDC. Sophie Brochu leads Hydro-Québec. Geneviève Fortier leads Promutuel. Catherine Tate leads CBC Radio-Canada. And I'm sure that now you start having those names. Just look at the way they lead the organization in a pandemic, in difficult situations. And I'm sure that there's something there that maybe we should take note of. So that would be my answer now.
Thanks so much, France. In fact, we saw female leaders around the world who actually stepped up and distinguished themselves in how they managed the pandemic. So, we're going to talk about that in a moment, but it's such a great segue to that conversation. So before we move off of the intersectionality conversation, I would ask, and we'll start with you, Susanna, is there anything your organization is doing particularly around intersectionality that you would want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the point that actually France made as well at the beginning, that what we're seeing is that gender continues to be one of the number one defining factors of a person's experience in the workplace. And so we continue to certainly be focused on gender. Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of organizations look at very specific targeted development plans, opportunities for women and women, marginalized women, to take steps forward. And I know we're going to move ahead in our next, as the conversation progresses, and talk about what has happened with women during the pandemic. But I think it is incumbent upon us as leaders of the organization, and many of the people who are in the audience as leaders in your organizations, to try and shine a spotlight to bring women back into a much more visible position without, by the way, overwhelming them. Because I think, and we'll talk about this too, I think women are tired. I think women are exhausted. They have, Lee made the point, they've had a lot of responsibility during the pandemic. So they're tired, but how can we bring them back to the forefront of the workforce? And I think we're seeing a lot of employers, and Mercer certainly as well, is doing that. And France, I would just add that, I know there are a lot of very powerful women in our own lives. Mercer's CEO in Canada is a Black woman from Jamaica. She's tremendous. And of course, we have a Quebec woman who leads Mercer globally, Maxime Ferland, who has had some experience with towers as well. So it's really cool to see these women take leadership roles, and I'm so proud of that.
That's good to say that, because we do think that Martine is still ours. So anyway,
I'll share her with you a little.
You can share her, but and Accenture has Julie Sweet, who's considered one of the most powerful women globally. So, and really influential. So we've got women out there who are making a mark. But what I might add that we're not seeing is very few of those women are women from diverse groups. So they do tend to be the same profile of woman, and that's where we need to make change. So France, anything that you wanted to add from Willis Towers Watson's perspective on intersectionality?
I would say I would agree with you with the fact that we need a more visible diversity in the way we go about this and give more chances. I think that we still have a couple of years to come to be able to elevate the woman. So if I'm talking about what we do at WTW, so we have a program called She Leads for mid-career women. It's a full year, it's a 10 months. And each and every one of those women in the world, but we have our own version in Canada, they get a coach mentor. Attached to them, could be a man, could be a woman, doesn't matter. And they are invited, many of them, to then be sponsoring more women the year after. This is our second year doing this. I would tell you this is amazing. I think this is durable. This is a lot, it engages all the organization, by the way, no matter what diverse it could be. And we have more diversity at that very layer. So we absolutely need to continue to do this more than this, but this is a signal. The other thing I would mention is that today, our Canadian leadership team, we are at parity. I'm sorry, I'm thinking French. And there's no guarantee with that. There's no statistic that will give you every year. Why? Because we promote women and men and other diverse persons and to some lines of business. We don't control all of this all the time. We can do better, but that's what we mean. And I've been part of this team for 6 years now. When I joined, we were at parity, not for a period of time. And then we got back to parity now. What's important is what's behind the curtain. What happens really? What's the voice of the woman? How are the conversations going? What type of decisions are taken in having that balance of diversity? So we are at parity from a women's standpoint. We are not as much as parity from a transversality, oh my goodness, intersectionality. This is so difficult to say in English for a French person, by the way. Cette intersection, I think that I really hope that what we do to mentor those women, that will be my boss one day. I really hope that we continue to do this to be able to have a CLT maybe in a couple of years that is able to achieve this. That's it.
Yeah, well, and I know you had your former head of your Montreal office, Elise, was a woman of color. So you know, I think what this conversation is making this top of mind for our participants, and I imagine for yourselves and your reflections. Lee, what about Accenture?
Wow, first of all, congratulations, France and organization WTW for achieving parity. This is a great achievement. Accenture, we aim to, you know, working toward gender parity, 50% female by 2025. But one thing I want to bring is, I think it is important that organizations and employers to be intentional about intersectionality. I think that is very important. And at Accenture, we have a self-ID initiative. So we actually, you know, putting out there and ask people to self-ID themselves in terms of, you know, race, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, and you know, the explanation behind that is really to know our employees better so that we can design support and policy so that we can make sure that we all be inclusive. So I think the intentionality is so important, and that need to be from the top, the leadership teams downward.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Lee. So ladies, let's shift to this pandemic. We've all gone through a cataclysmic 2 years. I mean, I don't think anyone I've ever spoken to has said that this past 2 years has not changed them or changed their perspective, changed the workplace, changed their work experience in some way. So, and we've seen it has had a profound impact on women and their careers, but it's even had a more profound impact on racialized women. So Lee, let's start with you. what role do ERGs play in supporting women as they advance their careers? As we're exiting the pandemic, what role do you see ERGs would be playing?
Yes, thank you for the question, and it's such a it's a passion of mine, because I'm had the privilege and to co-lead Canada Women ERG for Accenture. I think it's Women ERG at Accenture is trying to three things. We want to create a community, a place that people feel belongings, a safe space that employees can come and share their challenges, their experience, celebrate their success. So really, we want to be a community to our women at Accenture. Another thing we want to do is really to kind of, as a place to help develop our women professionally and personally. So we have a lot of, soft skill kind of training for our employees, women. We also have, bringing technical skill, like negotiation skill. How should you ask for a raise or, manage your career. But you also be a place that, we can embrace and engage the intersectionality of female, of all of us, and celebrate it. We found that especially during COVID, a lot of women are single, being locked in a condo, in a home, and has no interactions. Women Energy has many sections to kind of Happy Friday or, cocktail after hours to really kind of bring all of us in and just being formal and talk about what we concern about, what is our perspective about COVID. So I'm very happy to be part of the group and create a space for our employees to feel belonging, and a safe space that they can share, the challenges during COVID.
And Lee, do you find that your ERGs play a role in problem solving, things like that we're going to be confronting, women re-entering the workplace, or trying to grapple with a new workplace as we enter this post-pandemic world? What role do you think your ERGs will play in that space?
Very good questions, Nicole. I think we have been a community where our leadership actually engage with, to really have a sense of, what do people want post-pandemic? What do people think about the hybrid workplace? Do I really want to go back to work 5 days a week? Or, is it better for me to have 3 days, 2 days and work from home the rest of the day? I think it's a great place for us to kind of work together with our leadership teams to really help shape what the next future of work will be, by listening and hearing the concern and the feelings and the challenges that our women community actually had be able to share. So that has been a privilege to do that and be able to be the bridge and the connection between the firm and our employee.
That's fantastic. So bottom-up communications. France, over to you. You talked about your leadership development program and the critical role that mentorship and sponsorship plays in that program. So can you talk to me a little bit more about how do women secure mentors and sponsors? We don't necessarily have the same sort of networks as a lot of our male colleagues may have.
So it was sponsored by our own leadership. So the way we went about it, year one. Year two, we had volunteers. Year one, it was kind of too new to be known and top of mind. We were approached. So I was approached. I approached one leader from a Toronto market, and we did all of this everywhere in the world to make sure that we were able to match each participants of She Leads to this. So, and that went extremely well. Year two, that we just started now, we didn't need to do that. We simply went to all leaders, women, men, whatever, and say, that's year two, we need you. And we got a very good number of people raising their hands. I want to do it again. Oh, I didn't do it. What is this? I missed it. Can I do something? So year two it was amazing. Year one, year two is a little bit more robust, I would say. And we learn, right? You learn from that series of leadership training. And the other thing I would tell you that, yes,
sorry,
go ahead.
just on that one point.
Yes.
So how do your women access those mentors and sponsors? Do they have the ability to go into a pool? Like how are your women able to get access to those sponsors?
So we are, first of all, we are matched. So we're matched from a region standpoint, language standpoint, and it's always cross-lab. So you will never be a mentor to a person that is in the same line of business than you are, because we want transversality even in that matter. 1. 2, you get a briefing. So we get a briefing at the very beginning. We know exactly what's the courses and everything. We have some, if there's a book, we know about this. And we have planning every month. We have a session planned. But that responsibility is in the hands of the learner, the young leader learner, to do this. And so my first year, I would tell you, very responsive. I continue to have my relationship with her as well. And so she was planning to this, and they were, so you get this training that you get the debrief and with your mentor and coach. And we had 2 other meetings during the year as coach's mentor to see how we're doing. But do we see how's the program to be able to course correct if need be? Am I answering your question?
That's
Nicole?
fantastic.
Yes.
I want our participants to take away from this that as women, we have to take a role in actively seeking out our mentors and mentees and putting our hands up to make sure that we're accessing these fantastic programs that are out there. And we also have a great program that my colleague Caroline will be talking to you about at the end of our session. So Susanna, over to you. The post-pandemic, or what we're calling endemic workplace, is very different from what we knew in 2020, at the beginning of 2020. So what can women do to ensure that it doesn't negatively impact their career opportunities?
Mm-hmm. I think 2 things on this. First of all, Mercer just last week released the 2022 Global Talent Trends, which probably some of you have heard of before. It's a 7-year, it's our 7th year. It's a longitudinal study. And we really looked into, heard 11,000 voices across the globe about what is going on. And we've got a lot of results this year that are really focused on gender differences, which I'm kind of excited about. One of the things that we heard loud and clear is that over 90% of organizations are looking to transform their business in some way, shape, or form, quite substantially. And I think we all agree that we don't want to see women get left behind in that change. And another thing that we heard loud and clear is that organizations are looking to reskill their existing talent pool so that they are prepared for what they're going to be tomorrow. And we all know that there is a labor shortage for these highly skilled individuals. And I think many of us would love to see giving our current staff new skills so that they are able to grow, so that they are engaged, so that they are retained, and so they are able to contribute to tomorrow's transformation agenda, right? I think that is something that is coming through loud and clear, and a lot of organizations are thinking about it. And I think there's a role within the ERG that Lee was speaking of so ably, that there's an opportunity for a community here to understand what skills building opportunities there are and how we can bring women and make sure that they are thinking about this, ensure that they are becoming more marketable, more employable. I think some organizations think a little bit that we don't want to give our staff too many new skills. They'll go out and find a new job. I think we really have to shy away from that because we need to more contribute to the growth of women, of everyone, so that they can contribute to tomorrow. And I think the second thing, and this, I'm not sure if I have an answer for this, but another really clear finding from the study is that women are, to your point, Nicole, less interested, the data suggests, in returning to the office. And men are more likely to think that work gets done in the office. So those 2 things are obviously in somewhat of a conflict. I think there's some tension there. And I do think that just even as humans, we have a bit of presenteeism bias, right? We think and we give opportunities to people who we see every day. It's very easy to always rely on your right hand to say, hey, you, I see you every day. I know you're working really hard. How about you lead this special project? I know you have lots on your plate, but you can do this. Well, I think we really need to take a step back and think about how we can give those opportunities to some of the people that we aren't seeing every day. I think women have become, especially racialized and marginalized women have become less visible during the pandemic. We need to make them more visible. And I think there are opportunities again to help give them skills, but also to give them opportunities and just honestly take a deep breath and think before we go to the usual suspect with our opportunities.
It is so critical. We've had the debate internally about that very issue, Susanna, really around that that sort of tension or dichotomy of the presenteeism and the proximity bias and the bias about the people who are in front of you versus, you know, great performers who may not be there every day. And I think everybody has a responsibility to try and find some sort of happy medium, because we do need to find a solution that does not require necessarily women to be in the workplace every day. So I would love to get some questions from our participants for our panelists. I can see you're hot and heavy writing in the Q&A. Privilege of having a colleague, Sophie Piggott, who actually worked with me in my former career as the head of HR, and is also a member of our Parity Certification Committee here at Women in Governance. And she will be handling the Q&A. So Sophie, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Nicole. So we received a few questions from participants. One of them being, when we talked about the bags of chips, we mentioned the colors and everything, but how should we address women gendered ageism at the workplace? So age being also a factor that can be discriminated. So how do you suggest organization manage this?
Do anybody? Go ahead.
I can take the questions and maybe share some perspective. And I totally agree that it is the fact. We actually have a female Asian lady talk to me, you know, because Asian, we are a little bit blessed about how we look. We think that, you know, we're younger than our age, and we are being discounted by the fact that, you know, we look a bit younger. But it truly is a fact out there, and we should include age in, you know, the recognition of intersectionality as well, right? I mean, you know, it doesn't mean that I'm look young. That means that it doesn't bring kind of the perspective and the experience and the point of view that can matters. And I think, you know, employers should be recognize all facets of that Venn diagrams, you know, not just race, not just ethnicity, sex, you know, but religious, you know, all of that need to be included in our intersectionality consideration, so that we can have the right support, the right policy design in the companies to kind of help those women propel. Over to you, Frances. I know you want to add something.
Well, just to give a very, very yesterday example, one of my client is an amazing, experienced, brilliant leader. She is 63. She was considering retiring because she's overworked. She's given so much to her career in the organization. And you know, at one point you want to give, but maybe not 6 days a week or 8 days a week, right? And she just came to realize that the organization was absolutely ready to offer her 3 days a week and just keep her and get the best out of her and have another deal, simply put. And she did not even realize that that was something possible. So one, I think that organizations should consider this. If they haven't, I doubt that that's not the case. The case is that we don't work with that notion of how much, how different, how could we get the best of those leader women, you know, differentiated or not, to stay in the organization and thrive and give their best in other roles or in same roles. You can be a leader 3 days a week, right? And so that's interesting you were saying that, because I was having that very conversation, and you should see my art did, what are you, because even as a partner to her, I just love this lady. I don't want her to disappear, right? And that was sudden. So that taught me so many lessons, that 15 minutes conversation at the end of a session to say, oh my goodness, how could we just miss the point of keeping our amazing talent being women in leadership just because we don't communicate or consider. And then when we are shocked, then we become flexible. So my only hope, Lee, is that because we are so confined in talent, that we will be forced to have those reflexes to say, why does it need to be exactly with that model? That doesn't exist, right? So I really, really support what you were saying with that example.
And the only thing I would add, this is just such an excellent conversation, and I love the idea of the offering a new work deal, right? France, I think, is what you were saying, to take advantage of the knowledge. I think we should celebrate the group that is in their 60s, for example, who are still in our workforce. And I think, look, again, I'll point out that I think we're all looking at issues with retention. And I think many of our teams are looking for guidance and reasons to stay and things that will keep them engaged. I think there are excellent opportunities here for mentorship programs where we're celebrating the age and wisdom of some of our most tenured folks, and our junior people are getting guidance from them, and they are getting also the value of bringing along the next generation. So I think there are quite a few parallels there that can be drawn, and I think that's what I would add to what Lee and France have already said.
Thank you. In terms of data collection regarding intersectionality, do you have any recommendation in terms of what kind of KPIs organization can put in place so that they can, measure their progress in terms of intersectionality?
You need to invite your employees to the lens. You want to make sure that you keep connection with them, because situations change, and that you're able to say, you're a woman 35, you're a mom of 2, and you're gay, and whatever other intersectionality you could have. What counts for you might be not career at this point, but maybe in 2 years it will be the case. And what will keep you engaged and progressing in the organization is not to be unnoticed because you cannot give 60 hours a week to the organization, but you have a lot to provide. So to me, data, listening, connection is the only way organization can go, because you're rich when you do this and you cross your information together and you connect with your employees and the dots, you are doing the right thing. I'm sure that my 2 colleagues will say absolutely.
I am 100% agree with what you said, France. I mean, listening is so key. I think that's what we do when we go to client. We're listening to our client. Why cannot we listening to our employee? So one example I would share is our leadership team invite all of us to an open discussion about a month ago. And the topic is about what's in a name. And where in this open forum, we share about, the challenges of a lot of people changing their name because people can pronounce it. And that is not great, right? I was born with a name that was given to me, that's an honor. And now to accommodate a lot of, others, I'm changed my original name. So it was such an inspiring discussion, and it just opened up so many perspectives for everyone. So listening and open conversation and discussion is powerful, and I think we should do more of that.
The only thing I would add is bringing both of those points together is that what we're seeing in the marketplace, and this came out in the study as well, is that employees are actually starting to trust their employers more and more. And that data collection, as France was mentioning, and as Mercer does as well, and I think Accenture does, you mentioned, Lee, is starting to be seen as something that's going to be used for the good. Employers are starting to have points of view, are starting to speak out about some of these DE&I issues that are just so important. This is becoming much more mainstream. So collecting that data and then using it for the good in order to make sure that workforce is accurately represented and that the needs of the workforce are being listened to is absolutely something that is in full swing. And if as an employer, you're not collecting data that, and it's, of course, it's voluntary, but not collecting data on more than a gender basis, I think you're missing the boat, because I think employees really want to share what their unique characteristics are, because they trust employers to take that information and to make the workplace a better place. That might be a bit of a rose-colored glasses approach, but that's what we're seeing. And I think that has really changed from 10 or 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for our participants as well. And I will leave the floor to Caroline Kedzie to conclude the Parity Forum. As you know, Caroline Kedzie is the founder and Chief Equity Officer of Women in Governance. Up to you, Caroline. Thank you.
Bonjour. Hello, everyone. Good day. Thank you so much for this really interesting panel. I was very excited to hear you speak about such important topics. So thank you, Susanna. Thank you, France. Thank you, Lee. And of course, my colleagues, Nicole and Sophie for moderating the Q&A. And of course, Catherine, who did a fantastic job. Thank you to all the participants. I just really want to emphasize once again the importance of doing this work year after year. So the certification, the work, the recommendations that you follow, this is a continuous improvement exercise. Today's platinum organizations are not tomorrow's platinum. We keep enhancing our requirements and our expectations as women are taking more and more of a leadership role in organizations and on boards. We need to continue at it. So thank you so much. Several organizations have been with us since the very beginning in 2017 when we launched. When we had 17 organizations, it was kind of a symbolic number at the time. And today we are at over 70, 73, 74, something like that. So we're incredibly proud. And I also have to say that the teams at Mercer, at Accenture, at Willis Towers Watson have done a phenomenal job supporting us throughout the exercise of doing this tremendous work of evaluation and recommendations. And I want to thank, if you will allow me to really quickly thank all of our partners. You see their names here, who make our jobs possible. We are a nonprofit organization. We've been around since 2010, and there are more than 700,000 people in Canada that work for an organization that has Women in Governance's Parity Certification. So there may not be a legislation like you see in Europe to increase the number of women on leadership teams or on our boards, but we've been doing this and we have seen the wonderful results. We've seen organizations that have moved from bronze all the way to platinum. And sometimes they do a lot of work and they don't necessarily jump levels, but they are doing the right thing and they are being able to benchmark, receive best practices, receive recommendations, etc. If you could go to the next slide, please. I know during the event we've touched upon mentoring programs. I want to emphasize the complementarity of an internal mentoring program that you may already have in your organization, and the importance of also allowing your women to participate in external mentoring programs where they are working with a man or a woman who's a CEO of an organization that may help them through, innovative ideas, different culture, different perspectives than what they see in their current workplace. Sometimes we've got women who've been in the same company for 10 years, for 20 years. And, it's always good to have other perspectives. And let's not forget the ability of showing your vulnerability. Now, are you really going to say everything to someone who's a colleague, a coworker, a friend of your boss, maybe? So there are certainly advantages to having an external mentoring program. And also the fact that these programs are now available globally. So we've got women in Europe, we've got women in the US, we've got women in the Middle East that are being mentored by mentors who are also available everywhere globally. And so, as it was mentioned earlier, we take into account, the language, the geographic location, but also the desires. What is this woman trying to achieve? What is she looking to do with her career, and ensure that there is the best matching that happens. So we have top CEOs of some of the top companies in this country that are mentors in our program for executive women. We also have a program for professional women, and we've had hundreds of women since 2015 that have participated in these programs. We also offer governance training, but that's only available in French. And if we could go to the next slide, I also want to share, we were talking about amazing female CEOs, and the CEO of Mercer is going to be co-chairing our next gala at the Ritz-Carlton in Toronto on May 24th. So I hope you will join us, and she will be co-chairing with John McKenzie, the CEO of the TMX Group, who are also Parity certified. And very exciting, the next day, we're actually opening the markets at the TSX in Toronto. So it's a huge honor that we're getting. And another amazing female leader will be co-chair of our Montreal Gala, which will take place on September 15th at Palais des Congrès de Montréal. Annick Trudel, who's the CEO of one of the largest law firms in Quebec, Lavry. She will co-chair with Denis Janji, the president of Rolls-Royce. So voila, in a nutshell, it's 1:01, and you know how important it is for us to always, finish on time. There is so much. I could spend, the rest of the day with you talking about the importance of all the work that our team has been doing, and all our volunteers. I want to thank the amazing Parity Certification Committee, as well as all the other committees, our board chairs and our board members, all our committee members. We couldn't do this without you. So again, to our panelists, merci beaucoup. To all the participants, we hope to see you again real soon. Make sure that you're registered on our website for the newsletter, so you don't miss anything that's coming up. Alors, merci beaucoup à tout le monde. C'était un plaisir d'être avec vous. À très bientôt. Au revoir.
Merci Caroline, au revoir.
Merci, bye.